My wife told me she was spending Christmas with her ex-husband while I was standing at our kitchen table, cutting up a grocery store chicken with a dull knife. It was December 18th, a little after 6:30. Rain had been tapping against the kitchen window all evening, the kind of cold Ohio rain that makes every light in the house look tired. I had stopped on my way home from the plant and bought a rotisserie chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, and a pint of peppermint ice cream because Maya still loved it, even though she was 19 and pretended she had outgrown half the things that made her happy. I had also bought her a small silver compass necklace. It was hidden in my briefcase upstairs, wrapped in blue paper. I planned to give it to her on Christmas Eve with a card that said, "Wherever life takes you, you will always have a way home." That was before Renee sat down across from me and said, "Maya and I are going to Tennessee for Christmas." I looked up from the chicken. "Tennessee?" "A cabin outside Gatlinburg." "Who is we?" She pressed her lips together as if I had already made the conversation difficult. "Me, Maya, and Trent." The knife stopped in my hand. Trent Lawson was Renee's ex-husband, Maya's biological father. He had been in and out of her life since she was little, mostly out, but always close enough to make promises. "You are spending Christmas with Trent?" Renee sighed. "Darius, please don't start. I'm asking a question." "Yes, we are spending Christmas with him. And when were you going to tell me?" "I'm telling you now." I set the knife down because my hand had started to tighten around it. Not in anger that scared me, in the kind of hurt that makes your body look for something solid to hold. Was I invited? Renee looked away. That answer came before the words did. "It would be awkward," she said. "For who?" "For everybody." Everybody meaning Trent, meaning Maya. I stared at her. "Maya asked for me not to come?" Renee pushed her chair back a little. "She needs one Christmas with her real father." Real. That word landed harder than any shout could have. I had been in Maya's life since she was 8 years old. I had sat beside her bed when her appendix nearly burst. I had taught her how to ride a bike after Trent forgot he had promised. I had taken her to father-daughter breakfast at school when she was too embarrassed to ask. I had stood in the hallway while she cried over her first heartbreak and pretended not to hear every word because she needed privacy, but not loneliness. I had taken off work for parent-teacher conferences. I had checked the oil in her first car. I had paid the application fees for college. I had driven through snow to get her when her roommate had a breakdown and she was too shaken to drive home. And now I was sitting at my own kitchen table, being told that Christmas belonged to the real father. "Did she say that?" I asked. I... Renee folded her arms. "Don't interrogate me." "I'm not interrogating you. I'm asking if Maya said she needed Christmas without me." "She wants to reconnect with Trent." "That isn't what I asked." Renee looked at the refrigerator, at the floor, at anything but me. "Darius, she is 19. She is allowed to want time with her father." "I never said she wasn't." "Then why are you making this ugly?" I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, because the room had already been made ugly before I opened my mouth. Her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, and I saw the name before she turned it over. Trent. The message preview said, "Cabins confirmed. Just like old times." "Just like old times," I said quietly. Renee's face changed. "You read my phone?" It lit up in front of me. "That doesn't give you permission." "No, I guess permission matters tonight." She stood. "I am not doing this." "Doing what?" "Letting you make me feel guilty for giving Maya something she needs." "And what do I need, Renee?" She looked at me like the question had surprised her. "You are a grown man." That one hurt too. Quietly, cleanly. "So grown men don't get hurt?" "You know what I mean." "I don't think I do." She rubbed her forehead. "Darius, you have been good to Maya." "Nobody is denying that." "Good to Maya, like I was a neighbor who kept an eye on the house." "But Trent is her father," she continued. "Whether you like it or not." "I never tried to erase him." "Then stop acting like this." "Like what?" "Like you own the holiday. Like you own her." I stood slowly. The chicken had gone cold between us. "I don't own anybody." "Then let her have this." "Let her have Christmas with a man who missed her graduation rehearsal, her surgery, her college move-in, and most of the last 11 years? Renee's eyes flashed. People change. They can. You don't believe that. I believe change should show up before it asks for Christmas. She stepped closer. If you cannot handle 5 days, maybe we should not be married. The house went silent. Rain hit the window. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere upstairs, the old floorboards settled the way they always did in winter. I looked at the woman I had loved for 11 years and realized she had not said that sentence by accident. She had carried it into the room with her. Say that again, I said. Her mouth tightened. If you don't like it, divorce me. I nodded once. Not because I agreed, because something inside me had stopped arguing. I walked upstairs and sat on the edge of our bed. My briefcase was beside the dresser. I opened it and took out the small blue box with the compass necklace inside. For a while, I just held it in my palm. On the top shelf of the closet was a crooked ceramic bowl Maya had made me when she was 12. The glaze had run down one side. The word Dad was painted in uneven letters across the bottom, with a little heart after it. She had handed it to me in the kitchen and said, "It's ugly, but you have to keep it forever." I had. I sat there with the bowl in one hand and the necklace in the other, feeling like a man who had spent years building a bridge only to be told it was never really connected to the other side. My laptop was still open on the dresser. An email waited near the top of my inbox. Clarissa Benton, Regional Director for Meridian Systems Europe. Final offer, European Quality Director, Lyon Facility. I had been offered that position twice before. Twice I had said no. The first time, Maya was starting high school, and Renee said the move would tear up her life. The second time, Maya had just been accepted into college, and I told myself the family needed stability more than I needed the title. This third offer had arrived 2 weeks earlier. Better pay, 3-year contract, housing allowance, a real chance to fix a failing European plant and finish my career doing the kind of work I was good at. I had not answered. The deadline was the next morning. I closed the laptop and called my mother. Darius Carter answered on the second ring. "You all right, baby?" That was my mother. She could hear trouble before you told her where it lived. "No," I said. "Tell me." So I did. I told her about the cabin, Trent, the words real father, the way Renee had said divorce me like it was a dare, not a disaster. My mother listened without interrupting. In the background, I could hear the television in her apartment turn low and the faint clink of a spoon against a mug. When I finished, she said, "Do not take that job because your pride is bleeding." "I'm not. You might be." "Mama, I know you. You can look calm while your whole chest is on fire." I closed my eyes. She told me to divorce her. Then believe she meant you to hear it. What am I supposed to do with that? First, sleep if you can. Second, do not beg anybody to respect the place you already earn. Third, if you move to France, move because there is a life there, not because you want somebody back here to miss you. What if I stay? She was quiet for a moment. Then stay with your eyes open. I did not sleep much that night. At 8:47 the next morning, I accepted the job in Lyon. Then I called Malcolm Reeves. Malcolm and I had known each other since our 20s, back when I was a junior quality engineer and he was working nights while finishing law school. He was not a divorce attorney, but he knew people who were. When I explained what had happened, he did not give me a speech about betrayal. He gave me a list. "Do not empty the joint account," he said. I wasn't going to. "Do not cut off household bills out of anger." I know. "Do not send dramatic texts. Do not threaten. Do not vanish and let her make the story for you." Malcolm, I'm serious. You are hurt, and hurt men sometimes confuse silence with dignity. Protect yourself with paperwork, not performance. By noon, he had connected me with a family law attorney. By 3, I had changed my direct deposit to an individual account. I left enough in the joint account to cover the mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, and 2 months of ordinary household expenses. I stopped automatic payments on Renee's personal credit cards. I canceled subscriptions that had somehow lived under my name while only she used them. The Lexus she drove was leased in my name. I did not demand it back. I simply arranged for the dealership to contact her directly before the lease expired in January. Then I got to Maya's spring tuition. That one made me sit back from the computer. I had promised to cover part of it. The deadline was coming soon. I could have stopped the transfer with 2 clicks. Nobody could have forced me to pay. But Maya was not a bill. I called Malcolm. "Don't cancel it just to make a point," he said before I even finished. "I'm not angry at her. You are angry at the whole house." He was right. I postponed the payment until I could speak to Maya directly. Not Renee. Maya. I needed to know what she understood before I made a decision that touched her future. Packing took less time than I expected. 11 years in that house, and most of what belonged only to me fit into 4 suitcases and 2 shipping boxes. Clothes, work records, passport, my father's hand tools, a few photographs from before my marriage, the ceramic bowl Maya made me, the compass necklace I had not given her. I left every piece of furniture Renee and I had bought together. I left the wedding dishes. I left the guest room set. I left the patio chairs I had assembled 3 summers earlier, while Renee stood beside me laughing because I refused to read the instructions. I wrote Renee a letter. It started as 3 pages, then 2, then 1. I took out every line that sounded like I was begging her to understand me. I told her I had accepted the Lyon assignment and would be living there for at least 3 years. I told her I wanted a formal separation and that any future financial discussion should go through our attorneys. I included Malcolm's number. Then I wrote a second letter for Maya. I told her I was not leaving because she wanted time with Trent. I told her I was leaving because Renee had made it clear that my place in the family could be moved aside whenever it became inconvenient. I told her I loved her. I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it in my suitcase. I was not ready to leave it behind. Not until I knew what Renee had told her. On December 22nd, Renee left for Tennessee. I watched from the porch as Trent pulled into the driveway in a rented Tahoe. He stepped out wearing a camel-colored coat, clean boots, and the kind of smile that always made him look like he had just arrived from a better story than everyone else. Maya came out last, dragging a suitcase with one wobbly wheel. She hugged me tight, but there was confusion in it, like she knew something was wrong and had been told not to name it. "You sure you're okay staying here?" she asked. I looked over her shoulder at Renee. Renee looked down at her phone. "What did your mother tell you?" I asked. Maya blinked. "That work got crazy and you volunteered to stay home." For a moment, all I could hear was the rain gutter dripping beside the porch. "Did you volunteer?" she asked. Renee's head lifted. I looked at Maya. "We'll talk when you get back." Her face fell a little. "Okay." Trent clapped his hands together. "We should get on the road before traffic gets ugly." He glanced at me. "Brother, you mind checking the oil? This rental's been making a funny smell." I looked at him for a long second. "You can check your own oil." His smile stiffened. Renee whispered my name like I had embarrassed her. Maybe I had. I stood on the porch while they drove away. Maya looked back once through the rear window. I lifted my hand. She lifted hers. That was my Christmas goodbye. Christmas Eve passed quietly. I wrapped no presents. I cooked no meal. I opened the refrigerator 3 times and closed it again because hunger had become something distant, like a radio playing in another room. On Christmas morning, Renee sent a photo to the family group chat. The 3 of them stood in front of a stone fireplace. Renee had one arm around Maya. Trent stood on the other side with his hand on Maya's shoulder, grinning like a man who had won something. The caption read, "Finally together for Christmas." Maya's smile did not reach her eyes. I typed "Merry Christmas." Then I deleted it. That evening, I picked up my mother and drove her to a 24-hour diner near Blue Ash because the oven in her retirement building had stopped working. She ordered meatloaf, looked at the gravy, and said, "This gravy looks emotionally tired." For the first time in days, I laughed. Halfway through dinner, she reached into her purse and placed a small leather box on the table. Inside was my father's old wristwatch. "He wore that to work for 32 years, she said. "Mama, you kept this." "I kept it until you needed it." I fastened it around my wrist. The leather was worn soft at the edges. "Do you think I'm doing the right thing?" I asked. She stirred sugar into her coffee. "I think the life you were living is over whether you go or stay." That wasn't my question. It's the answer you get. Then she covered my hand with hers. Your father stayed too long in places that treated him badly because he thought endurance and loyalty were the same thing. They are not. Remember that when France starts feeling lonely. I left Cincinnati on December 27th. There was nothing glamorous about it. My connection in Atlanta was delayed. One suitcase went to Amsterdam. I arrived in Lyon wearing the same wrinkled blue shirt I had slept in on the plane. Clarissa Benton met me near baggage claim holding a cardboard sign with my name on it. "You look terrible," she said. "Good morning to you, too." That was the polite version. My temporary apartment was smaller than our guest room back home. The elevator barely held me in one suitcase. The washing machine had 6 buttons, and none of them seemed connected to opening the door. The next morning, I bought a carton of creme fraiche because the container looked like coffee creamer. It was not coffee creamer. At the plant, Luc Moreau watched me struggle with the employee laundry machine and said, "You crossed an ocean to be defeated by a washer." "I'm still learning the local management structure," he almost smiled. Then Clarissa called me into her office. The Lyon facility had failed an internal quality review. A major client was threatening to cancel its contract. We had 60 days to correct the problem, or corporate might shut down the assignment. "So I could be sent back," I said. "You could be sent back without your old position," she answered. That evening, I walked through cold rain toward my apartment while my phone vibrated in my pocket. 17 missed calls from Renee. Her messages changed as I scrolled. "Where are you? Why is your closet empty? What does this letter mean? You cannot move to France without talking to me." When I finally answered, she was shouting before I said hello. "Darius, come home." "No. Maya is devastated. She thinks you abandoned her." "Put her on the phone." "She is asleep." It was 3 in the afternoon in Ohio. "Then wake her." Renee ignored that. The cabin trip, she told me, had fallen apart. Trent had invited a woman he called a business partner. His card had been declined at the rental office. Renee had paid for most of the stay. Then Trent had backed the rented Tahoe into a wooden post. "You need to cover the charges," she said. "We're married. The attorneys can review them." "Are you really throwing away 11 years over Christmas?" I stopped beneath an awning and watched rainwater run along the curb. "Christmas did not create the problem," I said. "It only gave you a reason to say it out loud." I hung up before my voice broke. That night, alone in that small apartment, I almost called her back. Then an email arrived. Renee had meant to forward it to Trent. The attachment was titled Carter Household Assets and Equity. I opened it. There was our house value, mortgage balance, my salary, my retirement account, my credit score, our borrowing capacity, my life insurance, even the estimated value of my tool collection and the Lexus lease. The file had been created 3 weeks before Christmas. Until that moment, I had been telling myself Renee had made one selfish holiday choice. The spreadsheet told a colder story. Someone had measured my life in dollars before I ever picked up that grocery store chicken. I forwarded the email to Malcolm. He called me 10 minutes later. "You looking at it?" "Yes." "Tell me what you see." "Everything." "Be specific." "The house, my income, my retirement, my credit score, and borrowing capacity," he said. "Yes." "That is the part I do not like." I rubbed my forehead. "What is it?" "Could be several things. Estate planning, divorce planning, a loan package. I am not saying she committed a crime, but this does not look like somebody balancing a household budget." "Trent." "Maybe. I did a little checking. He registered a company 3 months ago." "What kind?" "Blue Ridge Renewal Group." "That sounds expensive." "It sounds like a company that wants investors." He read from his screen. "Boutique fitness centers, wellness studios, corporate recovery retreats." "Does he have any of those?" I asked. "Not yet." "So he has an idea." "He has had several ideas. 2 dissolved LLCs, 1 unpaid state tax issue, a contractor sued him over unpaid work. Nothing that makes him a mastermind." "Then what is he?" Malcolm sighed. "A man who is always one great opportunity away from success." I knew that kind of man. Every year had a new dream. Restaurants, vacation rentals, crypto, landscaping, mobile gyms. The story changed. The ending usually did not. "Talk to Maya," Malcolm said. "Renee won't let me." You do not need Renee's permission to call a grown woman who has called you dad since middle school. So I called. Maya answered on the third ring. Her dorm room looked exactly how I remembered it. Laundry piled on a chair, 3 coffee cups on the desk, a half-finished poster on the wall. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. You really moved? She asked. I did. You actually live in France? I do. She shook her head. I thought Mom was bluffing. So did I. Another silence. Then she asked, Are you mad at me? I looked at her face, and for a moment I saw the little girl who used to hide behind my leg at school concerts. Then I saw the young woman she had become. Confused, hurt, trying to understand why her family had cracked open over Christmas. I've been hurt, I said. That's not what I asked. No, I'm not mad at you. Her shoulders dropped. Mom said you volunteered to stay home because work was busy. I didn't. I know that now. How? She looked down at her hands. The cabin was awful. She told me what happened. Trent had spent most of the first night talking about his new business, slides on his laptop, revenue projections, future locations, membership packages, corporate wellness retreats. Halfway through dinner, another woman arrived, and Trent introduced her as his business partner. Renee had not known she was coming. Mom kept saying we were there to reconnect, Maya said. But nobody talked about me. What did they talk about? Money. My stomach tightened. What kind of money? She swallowed. I wasn't supposed to hear. What did you hear? Maya closed her eyes for a second. Trent said Darius has the credit. Renee has the relationship. I did not move. He said if Mom could get you to believe in the business, everything would work. There are sentences that turn a room smaller. That one turned my whole apartment into a box. What did your mother say? I don't know. I walked away. You saw the spreadsheet? Her head came up fast. You know about that? It got sent to me. I wasn't snooping, she said quickly. I went into the kitchen looking for coffee. Mom's laptop was open. I saw your retirement account, the house, all of it. I asked her why she had it. What did she say? Maya's voice got small. Families share everything. I laughed once. Not because it was funny. Because I suddenly heard how many times that sentence had been used when somebody wanted something from me. Families share everything, I said. Except Christmas. Maya started crying. I wanted him to come back, she whispered. Trent. She nodded. I thought maybe he had changed. Wanting your father is not stupid. I feel stupid. No. I should have asked you. Maybe. But you were also trusting your mother. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I didn't know she was pushing you out. I believe you. For the first time since Christmas, something loosened inside my chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But a small piece of hope. Do you remember that ugly blue bowl you made me? I asked. She laughed through tears. It's still ugly. I brought it with me. You did? It's on my bookshelf. She covered her mouth. I almost threw that away once. I'm glad you didn't. Me too. Renee called less than an hour later. I had heard you talk to Maya. I did. You had no right to drag her into this. I didn't drag her anywhere. You've turned her against me. Renee, I know about Trent's company. Silence. I know about the spreadsheet. Longer silence. It is not what you think. Then explain it. She rushed her words. We were discussing our future, being organized, looking at options. The document was created before Christmas. I update things. It included my credit score. Darius. It was prepared for Trent's business, wasn't it? No. Then why did he say I had the credit and you had the relationship? She inhaled sharply. You heard that? Maya did. Her voice softened. He thought maybe if the business worked, we could all have a better future. All? She did not answer. Was Christmas about Maya seeing Trent or about setting me up to finance him afterward? I was not going to force you, but you were going to ask. Silence again. That was enough. Before she hung up, she said, I never stopped loving you. I answered honestly. I believe that. She sounded relieved. Then I added, but somewhere along the way, you stopped respecting me. The next morning brought a different kind of battle. My first leadership meeting in Lyon was a mess. American engineers blamed the French technicians. French technicians blamed Ohio. Supervisors interrupted each other. Everyone had reports. Nobody had trust. Afterward, Clarissa closed the conference room door. Do you know why corporate sent you? To fix quality. No. I waited. They sent you because nobody trusts anybody anymore. She handed me another audit report. If you do not fix that, the numbers will not matter. That evening, I sat in a rented Peugeot in a supermarket parking garage and could not remember which pocket held my apartment keys. For one scary moment, I could not even remember where I had parked. I rested my forehead against the steering wheel. I almost called Renee. Instead, I called my mother. Hard day? She asked. The hardest. You thinking about coming home? Maybe. She let that sit. Then she said, a boundary does not stop hurting just because you drew it. It only stops other people from deciding where it belongs. A week later, Luke walked into my office carrying a dusty maintenance binder. You Americans never read the old reports, he said. Inside were records showing that the software problems had started after an update approved in Ohio. The French team had reported it months earlier. Nobody had listened. Ohio had assumed Lyon was careless. Lyon had assumed Ohio was arrogant. Both sides had stopped hearing each other. The plant was not failing because one group was incompetent. It was failing because trust had been replaced by blame. That felt familiar. We changed the process slowly. Daily stand-ups with translators when needed. Shared defect logs. No more hiding bad numbers until the Friday report. No more pretending Ohio's mistake belonged to France, or France's delay belonged to Ohio. People did not trust me because of my title. They started trusting me because I admitted when my side had been wrong. In February, Meridian Systems held its annual leadership conference in Cincinnati. That meant I had to fly home for the first time since leaving. Malcolm had already scheduled a formal mediation for the same trip. Renee thought I was coming back because France had worn me down. She did not know I was bringing the spreadsheet, and she did not know Maya was bringing a photograph of an unsigned draft agreement between Renee and Trent. If our house was ever sold after a divorce, Renee intended to invest part of her share in Blue Ridge Renewal Group. The betrayal was not in the money alone. It was in the planning. I had been gone almost 7 weeks when my plane landed in Cincinnati. The airport looked the same. I did not. France had not magically fixed me. I was thinner. I slept less. I still woke some mornings wondering if one bad audit would send me home unemployed. Renee texted before I reached baggage claim. Can we meet before tomorrow, please? I agreed to dinner at a steakhouse downtown where we had celebrated our 10th anniversary. Walking in felt strange. Same polished wood, same low piano music, same smell of grilled steak and butter. Renee was already waiting. She had taken care with her appearance. Her hair was freshly styled, and she wore the emerald earrings I bought her on our 5th anniversary. For a second, I remembered why I fell in love with her. Then she smiled like the last 7 weeks had been a misunderstanding we could clear up before dessert. You look tired, she said. So do you. She gave a small laugh. I guess neither of us has been sleeping. The waiter poured water and left. Renee folded her hands. I've had a lot of time to think. So have I. I think we both made emotional decisions. I looked at her quietly. My decision came after yours. She sighed. Do we really need to keep score? No. Then let's stop. She leaned forward. You made your point. My point? You were hurt. I understand now. Do you? Yes, so come home. Just like that. As though Lyon was a motel I had checked into during an argument. As though I had not changed my whole life after she told me I could be replaced for Christmas. What about Trent? I asked. Her face tightened. That was a mistake. The trip. Him. The business. All of it. A mistake or a plan that failed? She flinched. I let myself believe people can change. People can. She looked hopeful. You believe that? Yes, but change has to happen before people ask for another chance. The hope faded. You're punishing me. I'm protecting myself. She looked down at her napkin. I never thought you would actually leave. There it was. Not I never thought I would hurt you that badly. Not I never thought I would risk our marriage. I never thought you would actually leave. Because in her mind, my patience had become a cage I would never walk out of. The next morning we met at Malcolm's office. The conference room overlooked the Ohio River. Renee arrived with her attorney. Maya came alone. A few minutes later, Trent walked in, carrying a leather briefcase and wearing a navy suit that looked a little too new and a little too tight in the shoulders. He smiled like a man arriving to close a deal. "Morning, everybody." Malcolm stood. "Mr. Lawson." They shook hands. As Trent sat down, Malcolm glanced at his sleeve. "You still have the store tag attached." Trent looked down, embarrassed, and tore off a small plastic tag. "Must have missed that." Nobody laughed. Malcolm began. "We are here to discuss the marital separation of Darius and Renee Carter." Everything after that happened more calmly than I had imagined. No shouting, no thrown folders, no dramatic table pounding, just documents one after another. First, the asset spreadsheet, created December 1st. Renee looked down, then Trent's business proposal. My income appeared several times under potential financial strength. Then the email chain discussing possible financing. Then the unsigned draft agreement Maya had photographed. If Renee received proceeds from selling our house after a divorce, part of her share would be invested in Trent's company. Renee looked overwhelmed. "It wasn't finalized," she said. "No," Malcolm agreed. "It wasn't, but you were considering it." She did not answer. Trent leaned back. "Everybody is blowing this way out of proportion." Malcolm looked at him. "How so?" "It was brainstorming. You expected Mr. Carter to guarantee part of your financing?" I expected Renee to ask. "So you did expect it." Trent shifted in his chair. Renee turned toward him. "You told me we would rebuild our family." He spread his hands. "I said, maybe. You said we had another chance. I said we would see what happened." She stared at him. "You never meant it." I was keeping an open mind. That sentence seemed to break something in her. She had risked 11 years chasing a door Trent had never actually opened. Maya stood before anyone else could speak. "I'm done." Nobody interrupted her. She looked first at Trent. "You kept showing up whenever you needed something." "Maya, you don't understand." She raised one hand. "No, I understand now. You were not trying to become my father. You were trying to get close enough to the money." His jaw tightened. Then she turned to Renee. "And you kept saying all this was for me." Renee's eyes filled. "Honey, it was." "No, it wasn't." Maya's voice shook, but she kept going. "You wanted your old life back. You used me because saying that out loud would have sounded selfish." Renee covered her mouth. Maya looked at me then. "I'm sorry." There was so much in her face. Shame, fear, love, the old hope that I would fix it. I wanted to cross the room and tell her everything was fine, but everything was not fine. "I love you," I said, "and we are going to rebuild this slowly." She nodded while tears ran down her cheeks. "I know." Once emotions settled, the lawyers returned to practical matters. I surprised everyone. "I don't want revenge," I said. Renee looked up. "I want fairness." The proposal was simple. The house would be sold after legitimate expenses. We would divide proceeds according to the law. Neither of us would hide assets. Renee would remain responsible for debts connected to Trent's proposed business because she had authorized them herself. I would continue helping Maya finish college, but tuition payments would go straight to the university, not through Renee. Maya agreed immediately. Renee looked confused. "I thought you would try to ruin me." "If I wanted that," I said, "I would have started weeks ago." Nobody celebrated. There was nothing to celebrate, only consequences. As the meeting ended, Trent quietly asked Malcolm, "Any chance the building validates parking?" Malcolm smiled politely. "After this morning, I think walking would be good for everyone." Even I almost laughed. That evening I attended Meridian Systems' annual leadership banquet at the Hilton Netherland Plaza. Renee had been invited months before the separation, and she came. I suspected she still believed the conference would end with me announcing I was coming home. Instead, Clarissa stood at the podium. "When Darius arrived in Lyon," she said, "he inherited a facility where two talented teams had stopped trusting one another. He listened before making changes. He admitted mistakes on both sides instead of looking for someone to blame." She smiled toward me. Because of that, our largest European client has renewed its contract, and our Lyon facility will remain fully operational. Applause filled the ballroom. Then came the announcement. I had been appointed permanent European quality director. There was still hard work ahead. The plant was not perfect, neither was I, but I had earned the chance to keep building something. After the applause faded, Renee met me outside the ballroom. You really aren't coming home, she said. No. You chose strangers over your family. I looked at her for a long moment. No. I chose a life where being dependable does not mean being disposable. Her eyes filled again. I honestly thought you would always be there. So did I. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. Not angrily, just enough to protect the space between us. I loved you, Renee. I know. I probably always will in some way. Hope flickered across her face. Then I finished. But love is not enough when respect keeps disappearing. She lowered her hand. For the first time since Christmas, neither of us argued. There was nothing left to defend. As I walked toward the hotel exit, I realized something I had not expected. I had imagined that moment for weeks. I thought I would feel victorious. I only felt lighter. Not because Renee finally understood, because I no longer needed her to. People like to imagine divorce as one dramatic day in court. Hours unfolded over 5 quiet months. Meetings, paperwork, appraisals, signatures, long stretches where nothing happened except waiting. The house sold in late spring, not for what Renee hoped. The inspection found roof damage we had both ignored, and the market had cooled just enough to knock the price down. After the mortgage, repairs, realtor fees, and legal costs, neither of us walked away rich. I received my share. Renee received hers. No last-minute tricks, no hidden accounts, no dramatic courtroom speeches, just two people dividing the life they had spent 11 years building. Malcolm called after everything was finalized. Congratulations. It doesn't feel like something to celebrate. It isn't. Then why congratulations? Because you made it through without becoming someone you would be ashamed to meet. I sat with that for a long time after we hung up. He was right. There had been moments, especially during those first weeks in France, when revenge sounded much more satisfying than dignity. I am grateful I did not choose it. Renee used a large part of her settlement to pay debts connected to Trent's failed business plans and that Christmas cabin. I did not enjoy hearing that. I also did not rescue her. That may have been the hardest lesson of all. Helping someone and enabling someone are not the same thing. For years I had confused the two. As for Trent, he disappeared almost as quickly as he had reappeared. Once it became clear there would be no investment, no loan guarantee, and no access to my retirement savings, his calls to Renee slowed to almost nothing. One afternoon in August, Maya sent me a local news article from Cincinnati. Trent's newest venture was a luxury mobile sauna business. During the grand opening, the promotional trailer rolled down a sloped parking lot and stopped halfway in a decorative pond before the ribbon cutting even began. Maya wrote, "His latest business literally went downhill." I laughed so hard I almost spilled my coffee. Then I texted back, "Let's not make a habit of laughing at people. Once is probably enough." She replied, "Fair." That was progress. Not because we were making fun of Trent, because we were sharing ordinary moments again. Renee and I spoke only when necessary, mostly through email, sometimes by phone if something involved the house or final paperwork. Then about 6 months after the divorce, I found a handwritten envelope in my mailbox in Lyon. The return address was Cincinnati. I made coffee before opening it. The old version of me would have opened it immediately. The newer version understood that not every letter demanded an instant emotional response. Renee's handwriting looked exactly the same. She apologized, but not in the vague way people apologize when they are mostly sorry about consequences. She named things. She admitted she had mistaken my patience for endless acceptance. She admitted she had used Maya as an excuse because saying she missed the fantasy of her old family sounded selfish. She admitted she had expected me to keep fixing problems she created. The sentence that stayed with me most was simple. I stopped noticing everything you carried because you always carried it without complaining. I read the letter twice. Then I wrote back. 1 page. I thanked her for telling the truth. I told her I genuinely hoped she found peace, and I wrote the sentence I had not been able to say during our marriage. I forgive what happened. I cannot return to it. That was the end of our correspondence for several months. Somehow that felt healthy. Life in Lyon slowly became less foreign. Not easy, just familiar. I learned which bakery sold the best bread before work. I stopped getting lost on the tram. I figured out the washing machine after only flooding the bathroom once. Luke said this qualified me as half French. I still can't understand the parking signs, I told him. Nobody understands the parking signs, he said. Not even the French. Working with Luke became one of the unexpected gifts of my new life. On Friday evenings, we went to a community woodworking shop and restored old furniture. My first project was terrible. A small end table with one leg slightly shorter than the others. It wobbles, I said. Luke examined it thoughtfully. It has personality. I think it has gravity. It can have both. The second project turned out better. A walnut keepsake box. I mailed it to Maya for her 21st birthday. A week later, she called. You made this? I did. It actually looks professional. I'll pretend that is a compliment. It is. She went quiet for a second. I use it every day. Our calls became regular after that. Sunday afternoons for me, Sunday mornings for her. She found a part-time job at the university library. She started paying for her own books. She stopped asking me to solve every small emergency. We did not pretend the past had not happened. We simply stopped letting it control every conversation. The following summer, Maya visited Lyon. Watching her step through the arrivals gate made me unexpectedly emotional. She looked older, more settled in herself. She hugged me so hard I nearly lost my balance. I missed you, she said. I missed you too. A few days later, I invited Luke and Clarissa to dinner. Halfway through the meal, Clarissa smiled at Maya. So how did you meet Darius? Maya did not hesitate. He's my dad. The restaurant went blurry. I looked down at my plate until my eyes cleared. Later that night, we walked along the Rhone River. The city lights moved on the water, broken and golden. You never owed me that word, I said. I know. So why now? She slipped her arm through mine. Because now I'm old enough to understand who actually showed up. Neither of us said anything for a while. We did not need to. The next Christmas looked nothing like the one that had changed my life. My mother flew to Lyon carrying enough snacks in her suitcase to feed half the apartment building. Within an hour of arriving, she had complained that French coffee cups were too small, the elevators were too narrow, and the sidewalks were entirely too confident. The bread is excellent, though, she admitted, so I suppose I will forgive the country. On Christmas morning, I stood in my apartment kitchen making coffee. A year earlier, I had been standing alone in Cincinnati, staring at a photo that made me question my place in my own family. Now 3 mugs waited on the table. Mine. My mother's, one beside my laptop for Maya, who joined us by video from Cincinnati. She held up the walnut keepsake box. It's getting full, she said. With what? Good memories. A little later, another message arrived. It was from Renee. Merry Christmas. I hope you are happy. Thank you for everything you did for Maya. No request, no guilt, no expectation. Just a simple wish. I answered, Merry Christmas to you too. I hope you find peace. That was enough. Looking back, people sometimes ask whether moving to France was my revenge. It was not. Neither was the divorce. Neither was Trent losing another business. Neither was Renee realizing too late that I had limits. The real turning point happened earlier than all of that. It happened the moment I stopped believing love required me to accept disrespect. Walking away did not erase the pain. It simply gave the pain room to heal. If you have ever had to leave a place or a relationship to protect your own self-respect, I hope you know you are not alone. Sometimes the hardest goodbye becomes the first honest step toward a better life. Thank you for listening to my story.